Good morning, everyone. This is Greg Aiden with another episode of Servant Leadership Podcast. And today I am proud to introduce to you, I believe she's coming live from Mexico, although she makes home in New York, Miss Jen Nash. Jen, how are you today?
I am so well, Greg. Thank you for having me. It's lovely to see you after the holiday bustle.
Yeah. Well, we were just talking off air. My truth is I'm glad the holidays are behind me and looking forward to starting a fantastic new year. I get excited this time every year because of what's next. And so how about you? Are you anxious about the next year, or are you looking forward to the next year?
Oh, yeah, no, there's no point in spending time in anxiety. That's just gonna slow us down. I think I'm excited because the last couple of years for me have been focused on pivoting and evolving, and I think that always means learning curves. And learning curves are good and bad. They slow you down, but at the same time, they keep you interested.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to talk a lot about pivoting and growing and connections and things. But for now, and you can tell I've got a few red, yellow stickies on it. But Jen Nash wrote the book called The Big Power of Tiny Connections. And connections, or being connected, is something that's really helped me grow as a human being, as a man, and certainly as a leadership coach. We're going to dive into this, but for sake of the listeners, and I could read part of your bio, I could point them to LinkedIn, but what I read here is a connector in chief. Jen Nash helps people add more meaning to their lives through connections. She is a master facilitator, strategic advisor, author, sought after executive coach, and corporate speakers. And you have over 20 years of working as a senior consultant in various large companies around the country. But for period of today, for sake of today, who is Jen Nash today, and why did you write this book?
Wow. Such a small question, Greg. Thank you.
You bet.
Let's just condense that down. So, Jen Nash today is someone who's really, really excited about supporting people around her, leaning into connection, which leads us right into why I wrote the book. Because during the pandemic, I was engaged and the relationship was not thriving. And I think when you're in a situation where stuff is crumbling that you really had a lot of hope for, it really helps you clarify what's important.
Yeah.
And for me, the connections in my life, the people that I cared about, but also even the small connections, the people at work that maybe you didn't realize how much joy they were bringing for you, those connections became really important. And it's one of the reasons I wrote the book, because I think when we lean into connecting with the world around us, it's the single most amazing thing we can do for our health, for our sense of well-being, our sense of self. And it really inspires us. And it's fascinating because even people who don't like talking to strangers in tiny little moments can have wonderful exchanges where they walk away just filled, in a different kind of way. And so the book really was an encouraging word to inspire people to keep connecting.
Yeah. And yes, thank you to all that. And we have something in common. I found out as I was reading the book is your mom and my mom have never met a stranger. They talk to anybody, they engage with anybody. And I can remember Jen as far as I can remember as a little kid, going through the grocery store and her talking to someone or engaging me and encouraging me to engage. And I guess I come from it very naturally. I feel you do too.
Yeah.
So much you wanted to write a book about it. And your belief is that connections, the tiny ones who lead to bigger ones and relationships, and we'll talk about relationships as a lot, but you also believe that, especially for women, these little tiny connections can help them grow within their organizations and even make more money. And in fact, you have experience helping women do just that. Tell us a little bit about that before you became who you are today.
Yeah, so I launched a brand called Money Instigator in around 2016 after realizing that despite the fact I was a well-paid consultant, I still really struggled with knowing my worth and even worse, asking
Hmm.
to have the company pay me my worth. And I started mentoring women who were all, medium to seasoned leaders. And I heard again and again, this is hard for me. What should I ask for? What can I ask for? What are the parameters? I don't want to piss them off. And I did a lot of research and a lot of reading all about like how women ask for money versus men asking for money. I really have to admit, I thought there was a TED talk and I was going to be able to solve the crux of the issue. But it really boils down to how we're socialized. Little boys are encouraged to brag from the young age of when they score their first stickball win or hockey, whatever game they're playing. They run around the field and they're cheering for themselves, and it's fine.
Yeah.
Whereas little girls all high five each other and scream, "Go team," right? So it's very hard as a society, as well as a woman, to put yourself out there and be like, "Pay me what I'm worth."
Yeah.
Whereas a guy can be like, "Double my salary," and not flinch. He doesn't go home, he doesn't lose any sleep. Whereas statistically, women go home, they lose sleep, and rightly so, because our society still has a bit of a chip on its shoulder when a woman is direct and she does ask for what she's worth. There's a lot of data that still shows, oh, she's the B word, and she's just too aggressive, right? So it's an evolution. So I did a lot of mentoring and some consulting around that, and then I pivoted into a more holistic coaching approach that I felt was going to support in broader ways. Because the irony is women don't even really want to spend when it comes to a negotiation coach. It's fascinating. Like,
Yeah.
even if, like, I literally had one client who got a raise that was 20% of her salary, and she didn't even think she could get 5%.
Mhm.
So I mean there's absolute value, but I think a lot of women really struggle to want to give that to themselves.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the work you do. Not to go into it deeply, but I've done a lot of work with women in leadership. I coach several women. Very proud of the work that I'm doing, and listening to, where do I start? I'm not enough. I am in a tough scenario. It's getting better, I believe, but yeah, we have a long way to go, and only as the years go by. And that's why I also have a lot of fun in some of the work that I do with what I call emerging leaders. They will turn that trend, I hope, upside down. So more on that at another time. And as I look at your all the things that have been written about you, you say, I'm an expert on how even the smallest connections can impact every aspect of our lives. When we feel connected, we are happier, more productive in our true selves, and more able to show up so we can play full out. Just love that. I feel like I'm reading a news story about you, but you're a fascinating human being, and a wonderful woman. I love your heart and appreciate what you said in your book. But let's boil it down to how we how we focus on tiny connections so that we can grow our relationships, and how we can grow our networks. And I believe someone on the back of your book actually made that connection. What does she say? The relationship, or networks are relationships, and relationships are networks. And that's all we talk about: getting out of school and joining clubs, and how big is your network? What's your network worth? But you say, let's start with our tiny connections first. Give us some examples of how we can tiny connect, or we can use these tiny connections to be a healthier, wealthier human being.
So one of the ways I divided the book up was I really looked at what different people wanted. So it really would come down to like what you want. Do you want to make more money? Do you want a better job? Do you want to be a better person? There's a whole slew of different things where I tried to lean into the different humanity drivers, right? And so I think it comes down to, if you want to change your current circumstances, who do you know that knows someone that could be a mentor?
Yeah.
Really think about that. And I think a lot of people forget that their network is literally right there. Someone that they worked with that they haven't called in 7 years might be a great person to reach out and just have a chat with, catch up, find out what
Yeah.
they're doing. And then you could casually say, oh, I'm really looking at getting into real estate development. You don't happen to know anybody in that world, right? And those casual little questions suddenly will spark, oh, actually, yeah, my cousin runs a real estate development company. I'm sure he'd be happy to give you 30 minutes. You get that guy on the phone, and at the end of the 30 minutes, you're very appreciative. You honor the fact that it was 30 minutes, don't extend it. I'm always like really mindful of people's time. And then ask him if he could suggest 2 or 3 people that you could talk to. And all of a sudden, now you've got 4 people that you can reach out to with very specific questions. And, I'm a really big fan of gratitude.
Yeah.
Make the time, send that person a customized card. I talk about postable.com in my book. I love this website. It's fantastic. You can custom create and upload really gorgeous photos. Say you had a nice lunch. Say you and I were at lunch and I took a selfie of us. I could send you a photo from our lunch, with a nice, beautifully handwritten note, and it's mailed with a stamp on it. And you would be like, wow, Jen took the time.
Mm,
Actually, Postable took the time, but I'll take all the raves. But it's
sure.
really about like how we show up in life, and those tiny little moments, they can happen almost anywhere.
In my opinion, what we want, not what we need, drives us from our core. And when I say core, Jen, I mean our heart and our soul. We all have needs, but then we show up as needy. And as one of my favorite coaches, Todd Musselman, says, don't be that needy, creepy guy. Don't be that needy, creepy person. But when you show up with this is what I want, and that's a question I ask every single client. What do you want? Second question, what are you willing to do to get there? And that means effort, work. And then the third question that I give a lot of credit to Lori Oswald in TerraWorks is when? When are you going to get started? Because great plans are awesome unless they're just laying somewhere in your desk. When are you going to put them in your calendar? And that's what I love. So tell me more about what you found, that what people really want. Someone right now listening to this is listening and saying, all right, how do I get started? How do I truly focus on these tiny connections that, as you say, are sitting right in front of you?
I think the core to connection is people want to be seen and heard. And to your beautiful questions, like when you ask somebody, what do you want? You're going inside.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's not about like, hey, what'd you have for lunch today? And did you do the laundry this weekend? It's like, what's the picture you're painting for yourself? And I think when you inspire people to know that you're curious about that part of them, you're building on a connection, and it's going to go from tiny to big really quickly. So I think one of the quickest ways that we can do that in our lives is to go deeper immediately with anyone that we're spending time with. It could be someone in your at work that you normally would just, hey, have a project management conversation, but you suddenly realize you don't know their family's name, and you take the time because it's a new year to say, tell me about your partner, tell me
Mm.
about your children. Do you guys have pets? What are their names? And instead of just like taking it in, you write them down. And oh, what was the gift that brought all of you the most joy? See, that's a random question,
Yeah.
but it actually gets people thinking about like, oh, was there something we unwrapped? Or was it the fact that my uncle had just gotten out of the hospital and he was able to come to Christmas dinner or Hanukkah dinner, and share a story that we didn't expect. And so that was lovely. So, I mean, it might be something like that, but this could just take 3 or 4 minutes before you actually jump into your work conversation and you get focused on where you're going and what you're doing. But already that's a tiny little building block that you've just put into the wall of building much bigger connections.
Yeah, I smiled and actually giggled when you said it took 3 or 4 minutes. Yeah, it took 3 or 4 minutes to speak with another human being about something that is important to them.
Mhm.
And I'm just going to take a really leap of faith here that you see the value in other people, and you put your value aside for a minute as you do go deeper. And if there's one thing I want people to write down if they're listening to this, is what you just said, Jen, was go deeper. And I'll add to it, go deeper earlier. If you really care about someone, ask them some frickin' questions that mean something to them. And how do you know what means something to them? Well, ask them. What do they value?
Yeah.
And it's the beginning of creating alignment. And in my work, alignment is the first thing that we need. Because if you and I aren't aligned, we're not going to be able to work together. And
Yeah.
if we are aligned as people, but we're not sure where to start, then you start one way and I start another. And a lady who wrote a beautiful book on alignment talks about Shuva. You had said seen and heard. Those are the first two letters of the acronym, but it's seen, heard, understood, valued, and appreciated. And
Mm.
imagine leaders, and you're on a leadership podcast, so I'm going to throw this out there. Leaders when you feel seen, heard, appreciated, valued, and understood, you behave differently versus someone who's just pointing at you, telling you what to do. So love your work. And yes, I believe when we do go deeper, we then become vulnerable, or give the person the safety to become vulnerable himself or herself.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to me about how we avoid fear and just jump in with our heart, because we know the person that we're speaking with is someone we want to connect with. But how do we recognize if we're getting triggered, and how do we recognize when they're getting triggered, and maybe fear is getting in the way from us having the conversation? What tips and tricks do you have to make sure that we stay comfortable, is what I'm saying?
Well, I think breathing is critical. So if you're noticing a tightness in your chest, or your stomach's getting a little uncomfortable, or your shoulders are tightening up, I always encourage people to take a deep breath. Just
Yeah.
take a deep breath. There's enough time where that extra few seconds is not going to cause anybody to shift left or right. And you're going to feel so much better. And I actually encourage, so I do masterful storytelling and presentation trainings. And it's always so interesting to me when I suggest to people, if they're feeling uncomfortable, that they actually invite the entire room to take a deep breath.
Mm.
Most people who are in back-to-back meetings, or they're going from one thing to another, they so appreciate someone saying, you know what, I'm having one of those days. Can we all take a really big inhale, exhale?
Yeah.
That felt great. You could even say, you know what, I want another one. And it's funny because people think that there's so much judgment, but when someone actually comes in and holds the space, they are instantly a leader in that room. And all of a sudden, they've grounded themselves and everyone else, and we're all present. That presentation is going to go much better. They feel better, the room feels better, and everybody's like, oh, this is interesting. And I think the next thing that I always advise is be curious.
Absolutely.
If you're feeling uncomfortable, maybe be curious about what's making you uncomfortable. Maybe check in with the other person. How's their day going? What's throwing them off? What's keeping them on? Maybe something in the other person is sort of triggering them. So be curious and be gentle with yourself and the other person. I think we're all very hard on ourselves a lot, myself included.
Yeah.
And I think it's amazing to be kind.
Well, you said you became the leader of the room when you do something like that. You also said three of my favorite words: lead by example. The thing followers want in our parents and our teachers and our leaders is we want to follow someone that we admire their example. And by showing vulnerability and saying, you know what, I'm having one of those days, like you said, and take a breath. How many times have you heard you say that to someone, and you may not actually say it, but you're thinking it? You just want that person, you feel for them on stage, or you feel for them in a presentation, and you want to just send them a hug. And around that is just breathe. And again, I can't make this shit up. Laying down with my 11-year-old last night, and I really wanted to just put him to bed last night. I really did. I didn't want to wrestle. I didn't want to do the I bet you can't kiss me 10 times before you leave the room thing. But he really said, just a minute, Dad, just lay down for a minute. And I found myself laying down to someone that was still moving around a lot and didn't realize I didn't want to move. I will just lay down with you. But I did what I call the 4x4x4. And that's 4 seconds in, pause, 4 seconds out, pause. And before you know it, the little guy next to me was actually falling asleep. Huh. So I can't make this up. This just happened last night, Jen. And here we are talking about taking a breath. And I love storytelling. Oh, by the way, you said stay curious, and it's on page 198 of your book. It says stay curious and helpful, hopeful. And if people know anything about me, they know I ask why all the time. And it's my way of being curious. I want to know why you do what you do. And I always play this game when I interview someone, and I'll do the same with you, Jen, is if you're in an elevator with a 12-year-old girl or boy and they're looking up at you, or maybe looking eye to eye, depending on how tall someone is, but they look at your business card on your backpack, and it says, what whoever you are and what you do. But instead of saying what you do and how you do it, they ask why. How would you explain that to this 12-year-old, this curious 12-year-old looking up at you?
I'm really, really lucky. I love words. And so I would have said, because it's fun,
Mm.
and because my words change lives. And I'm blessed in that, like, I have, 25 years in marketing it's funny. I was thinking about it the other day. Even if you're just selling a product, you're still telling a story. You're still trying to connect. So I have 25 years of expertise around creating stories that connect products with hopefully someone that's excited to eat a Kit Kat or invest their money, or discover something interesting about, AI with IBM Watson. Like, it's always, I see it as a curiosity motivator. So I would look at that little kid and be like, because I love words, it's fun, and I get to change lives.
Yeah, beautiful. And that little kid might walk out of the elevator and tell their parents or a friend who they just met. They may not remember you, and that's okay, but they're going to remember the interaction, or they may remember that tiny little connection they had with you in the elevator.
You never know. What would you say to the little kid looking up at you?
I love helping people get better. And I would definitely say it's fun. I love what I do. I would look them right in the eye and say, I love what I do. It's not that I didn't love what I did, but I love what I do. And I would encourage them to find something they love and chase it.
Yeah.
So telling a story might get this, that, and that, but how might your storytelling have someone hire you as an expert in telling stories and creating connections, obviously, that lead to wonderful relationships and networks? How would someone, or why would someone hire you?
I think it's a sense of life. It's like vigor, it's joy, it's the passion that I bring to my work that I really try wholeheartedly to inspire, almost through osmosis, to others in the room. And it's interesting because people say, well, not everybody can have the same presentation style, and I understand that. But at the end of the day, when you are building a team that is going to inspire and connect in any way, whatever that team is, built to do, you really want them to sort of reach across that Zoom camera or across that conference room table and land energetically with whoever they're speaking to. And I think that when people hire me, they know that it's going to be a shift, and they're going to ratchet things up in terms of clarity, understanding, connection. Why are we here? What are we doing? What is the process of this meeting? How much time am I taking? Like understanding all of that is key, but really landing, so important. And it's funny. I recently got hired to work with a new business team that is wonderful. They're pros, but the head of strategy said to me, "There's something missing." And I said, "Are they bringing their own stories to the pitches?
Mm-hmm.
Are they bringing stuff that really touches them into the work? Because you guys are doing really powerful work there in the pharmaceutical marketing vertical." So they really were changing lives. And she said, "No, that's what we need. They've lost that spark." And so that's what we worked on. And it was so exciting to see them shift. And, at the end of the day, there's ROI in there. Like that is money well spent.
Yeah, thank you for that, because telling a story is easy, especially if it's true and it's yours and you own it. Is so it's just sharing information with somebody else. And I've been in sales and development my entire life until this particular job, and I would tell you this career path has helped me tell my story, and people can connect to it or they can not connect to it, and that's their choice.
Right.
But I would tell you, and I've said this in all of my sales training chat conversations, I don't know that I've ever sold anything.
Mm,
I helped somebody buy what they said they wanted. I'm just a vehicle.
yeah.
Yes, I'm a salesperson. I was in development, but I told stories over and over and over and over, and they could resonate with them and follow them or not. But you want to tell us a story about someone who bought something that you're looking at buying and why they were successful and how,
Yeah.
and did they make money with it? But so much wisdom coming out of you. And to wrap this up, I just have to say that first of all, thanks for postable.com. I wrote that down. I'm going to take a peek at it myself. If
Let
you
me
have
let
it,
me let me send you the 20% off then, because it's postable.com/partners/ Jen Nash, and that'll get you 20% off. Buy yourself a chunk, and then you can mail, like, you'll save money every time you mail. I'll send you the link. We can put it
beautiful.
we can put it in whatever that's available on this chat, and you can share it.
Good. And one more time, just for our viewers, this is the book we were referring to throughout the conversation. It's the Big Power of Tiny Connections. Read it. It's beautiful. It's easy. The chapters are well written. It'll make you laugh. It'll make you happier. And as you said early in your book, it might even get you laid, which I thought was really interesting. And to those of you out there struggling, it seriously, it starts with connections. It's hard to have that unless you get connected with someone, and beyond a one night stand. But we all know what you're talking about. You also mentioned be seen, be heard, go deeper, go early, tell your story, and I love what you said about taking a breath. Just breathe, and let life come into you, and especially when you're feeling anxious. But Jen, how would you like to end this? What are your last few words you'd like to share with the audience?
Well, I think I would love to inspire them at the next meal that they have, either with work colleagues or family. I would inspire them to ask the table something personal that is going to go beyond the day to day. So, for instance, I was at a table full of strangers for Christmas dinner, and because I'm traveling right now, and I asked everyone to share what's one thing they're leaving behind that they'd like to leave behind in 2022, and one thing they'd like to add for 2023. So it's not, it's not a huge question, but it was an interesting one. And
Yeah.
everybody went around, and, some people share platitudes, but then some people will actually like share something really personal, and that's gold.
Yeah.
So get creative and go a little deeper. Be brave. It's so fun.
Yeah, love it. Go deeper, be brave. Jen Nash, we can find you at a very difficult website, jennash.com/books. If you want her book, again, it's called The Big Power of Tiny Connections. And Jen, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you as a guest today. I know we've been looking forward to this for a while, and thank you for making time. So
Yeah.
what's one thing you're leaving behind in 2022?
Good question. I think I said I'm going to leave behind a little more like confusion, and I'm going to go forward with more clarity. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Cause like, I think as we evolve as entrepreneurs, there's always like, do I need that? Do I need this? And that confusion slows you down. So I think with clarity, hopefully comes more grace. Not
Yeah.
that's my earnest share. How about you? What's one thing you'd like to leave behind?
Well, I want to leave behind things that don't bring me joy and financial reward. And honestly, you can call that confusion too. And so what I heard you say is you're going to convert confusion to clarity, or leave behind anything that isn't straightforward. Because what we can see, we can approach, and what we don't see, we don't believe in, call it confusion, call it a mess, call it uncertainty, whatever you want. The other thing I'm going to leave behind are relationships that don't serve me, my wife, my beautiful family, and people who don't have the time to for us. I need to just address that and say, you know what, that's a sign. It's not tit for tat. It's time. We all have 168 hours every week, and if I'm focused and filled with clarity on how I spend my time, I'll get a lot more done and be more fulfilled. And frankly, when we're more productive, we actually have more time to spend with the people we say we love.
Yeah.
So,
I love that, Greg. That's awesome. Yes, I want that too.
okay. Well, it's right here, aidinleadership.com. No, I'm kidding.
Yes,
Jen,
no.
Jen Nash, thank you for being our guest. With that, God bless. Have a great day. And I'm going to just say one more time, go deeper and go deeper earlier. Ladies and gentlemen, Jen Nash, thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg.